So, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Consciously Thriving podcast.
Hello, so excited to be here because we have another special guest. I'm like two in a row. What is happening? Miss Cheryl.
Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
We are so excited. Cheryl is actually one of our really, really good friends. And also, she's like a guest teacher in one of my programs because I'm literally obsessed with everything that she does. Cheryl and I met back in the day now. Oh my God. It's me. I feel like that was a lifetime ago. It was like, when was it?
It was July, no, it was April 2021, I think is when we
Yeah,
started Soul Teacher. But
2021.
yeah, it was
No,
2021, wasn't it? Yeah, it's coming up on two
It,
years. Yeah.
it
Yeah, it's
was.
crazy, insane.
It's 2 years and I still haven't seen you in person, but I feel like we have.
That doesn't, I'm like going that,
That
yeah,
doesn't
we're
even make sense.
manifesting that. We're working on that.
Yeah, we literally say bye to each other like whenever we finish up. We don't even finish. We've been talking nonstop for 2 years, Cheryl.
I
Do
know,
you
it's
realize
crazy.
that's crazy? Like we send each other like at least like 2 hours worth of like podcast recordings all the time, like just for weeks. That's all we do. We just send each other these recordings. And I can't believe we've been doing it for 2 years because I just can't get enough of you and everything that you have to say. Honestly, you're like a big part of like my journey. I always say that, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am without these connections that I've formed in my life. And you're like one of those like really, really pivotal important connections in my life that have literally you've just helped me so much to like excel and like go the course, and you've helped me when I've been down and you've celebrated with me, and it's so emotional to think about that. I can't believe it's been 2 years.
I know you're making me really emotional now as well because you've been a massive part of my journey. And I think a lot of what we've been going through on the roller coasters, we've been going through it together. And
We
honestly, when I
have.
get your voice messages, they're little nuggets of wisdom, I think, or little like
uh,
what do we used to call them pockets of joy.
yeah,
Our
pockets
pockets
of
of joy
joy,
when we
that's
get
what we
them.
got.
That's what it
Pockets of
was.
joy, nuggets of wisdom. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we
So
met in the
good.
Soul Teacher days. We actually trained together, and something that I actually had her on the podcast when the podcast was The Closeted Soul. So we actually have an episode from back then as well. And we met in Soul Teacher days. And the thing that I feel like I really resonated with you about was the fact that you were also like pretty realistic with your mindset, like pretty like in the realism, like kind of not atheist, but you know what I mean? Like you weren't very like spiritual yet, but you kind of like got drawn to that area and you were just like, well, what the fuck am I doing here? Like you were more in the self-development space, I realized, which was like similar to me. So it's like I went from like atheist to like this world kind of trickling into my life. And then Soul Teacher was really like the start of my like proper spiritual awakening where I really got to explore these abilities that we all have, like these intuitive abilities. So I'd love for you to actually like explain actually, before we do that, I'm like, why did I get into that? Well, explain your story. Explain your story as to like how you got here, and then we'll get into what you do.
Oh yeah, I was like, I'm so curious to know what you were going to ask. Otherwise, how I got here. Oh wow. Um, yeah, I was definitely the same as you, personal development. But I suppose I had my spiritual awakening or got into personal development following the breakup of a toxic relationship. And I suppose for me, it wasn't a case that I wanted to go down this route. It was a case that I was seeking to figure out why my life was the way it was, why it was in such shit when it appeared that everybody else had their life together. And it was a really dark phase in my life. And when I actually look back now and when I have the awareness to know all that I know now, it's actually spirit was trying to get me to wake up all along. I just didn't hear the callings at all. But following that breakup, like I really was on my knees. It was a point of do I survive or do I not survive? And I was going to a therapist at the time, one of many therapists that I've been to. And she wanted me to find some sort of a hobby because a lot of my friends were at the phases of they were getting married, they were having babies, doing all those things. So I had a lot of free time, and that was a lot of lonely time for me. And God, I'm going to get emotional now. It was
Oh
very,
no,
very lonely.
get
And
emotional. You can.
Yeah,
I
You need to
suppose,
take a moment.
yeah, no, I don't know where that came from. um, uh, for me, it was just very much like I spent a lot of time on my own, and I just started. The only thing that would give me the little pockets of joy were getting into personal development books, listening to the podcasts, doing all those things. And slowly but surely, I ended up veering into spirituality. I didn't realize that it was spiritual texts that I was reading. I didn't realize that I was reading like Wayne Dyer, Eckhart Tolle. I
Wow.
just thought that they were part of the personal development world. And I suppose I'm so glad that I didn't know they were spiritual, because I probably would have rejected them had I have known. I was brought up as Catholic,
Mm.
and like many of us here in Ireland are brought up um under the Catholic Church, and I'm glad that I was brought up having a faith. I didn't believe in a lot of the rules and restrictions that a lot of religions have, but in one sense I'm so glad that I did have that, because I always knew there was a bigger force out there.
Mm.
So I anchored into that. And I also got into meditation for my mental health. And because it's one of those things, and I know you're into meditation as well, and it's one of those things that people keep telling you, just meditate, meditate. So I had to keep doing it just to, I suppose, alleviate some of the panic attacks that I was having.
Mhm.
And I suppose I started connecting with angels then following that. I was reading Gabby Bernstein's books, and she had talked about spirit guides and angels. And I remember the very first time I read one of her books, I think it was Super Attractor, and the chapter she had on spirit guides, like I laugh now because I went, no way, that's too woo for me. I'm not going down. I actually skipped that chapter. Skip the chapter, but in a meditation some of the angels started coming to me, and I and straight away I thought of Gabby's book, so I went back and I read more of Gabby's book again, and I just started getting deeper and deeper into it, allowing my meditations to go deeper. And I just started following the gentle nudges. And one of those nudges led me to do a coaching certification, which seems wild to me at the time because I was still in such a dark place, but something deep within me knew that I had some sort of a purpose here. And I wasn't
Mhm.
sure what it was. And it was actually Manifestation Babe. I heard on one of her podcasts in 2019. She said, if you woke up today, you have a purpose.
Mm.
And that just really stuck with me. I remember listening to it on a sun lounger in Dubai, and I remember thinking, "Oh my God, if I woke up today," because my sister lives in Dubai. I have another sister in Chicago. I was getting to go to these beautiful places, but I was sitting on a sun lounger in misery.
Mm.
And when I heard those words, I literally was like, "What is wrong with me, ladies? I don't know what's wrong with me."
No,
When
it's
I
emotional going back to that time because you don't realize like where you were and the feelings that you were in. So it brings up so much emotion.
yeah, it really does. Um, But those words just made me go, okay, I have a reason to be here and I want to help people. And it seemed so insane to me because I was so not in a fit mental state to help anybody else. I couldn't even help myself. But I suppose all those days, all those reading the books, all those pages, all those podcasts, they were me every day taking action to help myself.
Hmm.
And then I kept doing the courses. I kept doing different courses. And I suppose a lot of them were how to start a soul led business type of courses. So I was getting
Hmm.
deeper and deeper into spirituality. And then I did Manifestation Babe Academy. And Manifestation Babe Academy was really big for me in trusting my intuition and following what was on my heart.
Hmm.
And while I was doing Manifestation Babe Academy, I was listening to a podcast and I heard Nikki Novo on the podcast, on Amber Lee's podcast, Chakra Girl Radio podcast. And straight away I was like, who is she? I need to work with her. And it was just some knowing within me that I had to work with her. It made no sense. I got on a call with her. You know, her program was like $3,000. I was still doing the other course. I was in my 9 to 5. I was coaching. I was doing all the things. It did not make sense for me to do this program. But somewhere deep within me, I was like, I have to do it. And I'm so glad I did it. Even when I got on the call to Nikki, she was like, you don't need to do it right now. You can do it later in the year. But something deep within me was just like, you have to do it. And for the first few weeks of that program, I I didn't really like it because I was like, there were so many talented people like yourself in it. And I was like, I don't have a clue. What am I? They're connecting with their spirit guides. They're like, they've so many talents. And I just felt so lost. And I'd say within the third week, I was like, I am home. I met so many beautiful people. And it just felt like I finally felt like I fitted in, or I finally felt like I belonged someplace. So that is what has brought me here today. And I suppose I've just kept going with it, kept following my intuition. And it just really goes to show, like, even when we think we're not intuitive, even when we think back then that I couldn't trust myself, I still was always been led. I still was always been guided. So for anyone out there listening, thinking that you're not intuitive, like, you are always been led, and you do know deep down, you do know. It's
Mm.
when the ego comes in and gets on top of us, because my ego did come in on top of me. As soon as I thought I need to work with Nikki, there was a million reasons for me not to work with Nikki. But
Yeah.
I chose to anchor back to my truth and anchor back into the fact that, no, I'm actually going to do something and start trusting myself for once.
Oh my God, I'm literally emotional hearing that story because it's like taking me back to when I had that realization that I needed to work with Nikki as well. Like it just didn't make any sense. I didn't know, like financially, all of it, none of it made sense. I was like, this doesn't make sense, like why I have to be here. But it was just this calling. And I actually found Nikki through the same avenue that you did as well. So Nikki's the one that runs Nikki Novo. She runs Soul Teacher and she does like a bunch of other things. But she was on, I think it was the Balance Blonde podcast, and I was listening to her and I just got that ping, the same ping that you did. It was like, you need to like find out more about this woman, like what she's about. And I booked in that reading, and then I was sitting there after the reading and I was like, I just need to do it. I need to be in Soul Teacher. Like it just needs to happen. So I'm glad that we both listened to our intuition. I'm like, would we have found each other otherwise? I feel like we would have. I feel like we're soul family. Like somewhere along the line we would have meshed.
I think we would have as well. I've no doubt that we would have, like for sure.
But now, like,
Universe would have found its way.
sorry, Nads, go on.
Universe would have found its way.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure.
So now that you're here, like I just think it's so emotional to get like the backstory, which is good as well, because I don't think people realize like where people started, like people in this space that are doing the thing, using their intuition, living these like intuitively led lives where they're manifesting their desires. And, you know, the people that kind of like they're watching and they're like, oh yeah, it's easy for that person. Oh, but it comes easy to that person. It's like, holy shit, no, like from where you like we started to like the shit we had to move through to get to where we are is like a whole story. So I really like to get people's like backstory, just so you can kind of see the transition for yourself as well. And usually it's that moment where you're just like literally, as you described it, on your knees, right? Just calling out to the universe, like you have no other option. There was yeah, so with that, we just got your story. So what do you do now? So how do you help people? What's your vibe about? Which we should have done at the start, but Shul's has a unique way
No, I
of
love it. Just
doing
rolling with it.
it.
So I help people access their intuition so they can live a more aligned and fulfilling life. And typically there's two types of people that come to work with me. There's those who are looking for guidance in the area of love and dating, and then those who are looking to step into their purpose through accessing their intuition, because I believe it's the only really way that you can do it.
Yes.
And I work with them through a number of different things. I provide energy readings whereby I tap into somebody's energy, provide clarity as to what might be going on in their energy field, and give them guidance on how they can move forward and how they can manifest their desires. I then also provide energy healings, which this to me is really powerful because there's a lot going on in any of our energetic fields, and sometimes there's just stuck energy there and we need to move that out. And thirdly, then I have different types of coaching containers where I work with somebody for a number of weeks. And this is really where the true transformation lies, when you go into a container with somebody and actually say to the universe, you're going all in for change, for transformation. And really, I mix together my spiritual teachings, my intuitive guidance, and also the energy healings. Because exactly what you're saying, I got stuck in the world of mindset, the personal development work for so long. Not for so long, I can't say, because it was only for a few years, but I think I kept tripping myself up. Because when you become really self aware, you can start thinking, okay, things aren't happening quick enough for me. Therefore, it must be my fault. There's something wrong with me. Whereas it's actually something going on in your energetic fields that might be blocking you from calling in your desires or from healing and letting go of things in the past. So there's two things at play. And really, my programs are about bringing those two things together so that you can speed up things for yourself rather than staying stuck.
Love that. Shul's would have had heaps and training with, and in the midst of training with you as well, but we've had readings with you, and they have been honestly so accurate, so amazing. I just, every time, like it's like Shule and I, what's it, like every 6 months?
Every
Like
6 months now.
every 6 months I have to book in a session, but honestly, like they're so amazing. So can you just explain a little bit, like with those readings, like what you're actually doing? Because I know this would like leak into a lot of your coaching and things like that. And just for people having background, they might want to book in with you or anything. Like what actually are you doing to like help people with that intuitive guidance there?
So typically before a reading, I would meditate and tap into somebody's energy field. And when I trained first, I was actually meditating and tapping into their chakras. So we've 7 main chakras within the body, and I would tap into each of these and provide guidance. Whereas now, because I'm more used to doing it, typically the when I call somebody's energy forward, the information that I need will just jump out at me. Like it comes much quicker. I also journey to the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is somewhere up in it's an energetic orb of light nearly, where it's just energy, where there's so much information. It's literally like a world of information, kind of like a library, and each soul has got a room there, and each room has lots of books of past lives, present life, and future lives. And from there you can get information on somebody's path, their purpose, where they might be in this season of life. A book that I really like to get in there, because you can get all different types of book, is the book of love, particularly when people are coming to me looking for love and dating. I get that information. But for me, a lot of the information comes through in the call. It's really important, and both of you are amazing at this, because you're there to get the most out of the sessions, and you're happy to interact with me. And the more interactive the person is within the session, the more information that's going to come through. Because it's like I've opened up a channel into their energy field, and more comes through. So you get the most out of the session when you're interactive, and you want to get the most guidance. What I feel is powerful about the session, you ladies usually have the higher self reading and healing, and what I love about that is we're not only working with just the guidance that's coming through, there's a healing in the session as well, to remove a lot of blocks, and also for you to be able to, for people, you two ladies are very intuitive as well, anyway. But when I have people that come with me and they actually see things, because I bring people on a journey in these healings, it's bringing them on a journey, and people are always so surprised with the amount they see, the amount they feel, and it's opening up their intuitive gifts as well. So really this is about empowering people to actually know that they're intuitive as well, which is a big part of my work. It's not that I want to be um thinking that you need a reading constantly. It's about helping people know that they're intuitive as well, so they can tap back into their own power.
That's
Yeah.
what.
Sorry, go
No,
on.
you go.
No, go Shawls, go Shawls.
I was going to say that's what I love about like your work and the way that you read, because I really move away from people that come from the perspective of like I'm intuitive and all knowing and come to me for all the advice, whereas you really like give the power back to the person, and that's a lot of like the programs that you do as well. It's about people like getting back their personal power, right? So with the intuitive abilities that came online for you, right? So you now describe that these have come so easily to you, but people can't even like fathom that. I see it in MDL a lot as well. Like people can't, like, they don't think that they're intuitive. And then at the end of the 3 months, they're doing all these, like, they've trained their intuition to the point where they know how to read that energy now. And it just like, it kind of like turns on, because it is a muscle that needs to be trained. So, what are your like methods to, or if you had to like give somebody tips who wanted to strengthen their intuition, what would your tips be?
The first thing, I suppose, the biggest tip is to know that we were born intuitive. Because I see so many people coming to me and they're saying, I'm not intuitive, I'm not intuitive. And when I call their energy forward, like they always are intuitive. And I see sometimes their guides will connect with me and be like, we're giving her the thing. Sometimes I'd see guides been really bored, been like, we're sick of telling her the same thing and she's not actually listening. So it's like, know that you're intuitive. And the likelihood, if anyone is listening now feeling like they're not intuitive, as soon as I say it to people, you kind of see them kind of like shift a little in the chair. They're kind of like, well, I did get this one sprinkle of ideas, or I did get this. And I'm usually like, but there is something you'd like to be doing, but it's almost like they want this permission slip, that it's like that.
Mm.
And that's what I'm gifting them. And the readings really is, you are intuitive, and like go for it. And spirit is giving you that guidance. So I would say, for anyone that's looking to tap into their intuition, your intuition is what lights you up. It's what sparks joy in you. And spirit doesn't come along and just keep on telling you reams of information. Like a lot of times it will come down to one little thing. You might hear something in your mind and it's in your own voice, and you might hear, go do this, go to this place, or do this course. Right after that happens, or within a few hours, a few days, a few months, whatever it is, your ego is going to come in. And your ego is always speaking from fear and lack. It's the way the ego is programmed. Whereas your higher self, or your intuition, knows that the universe is abundant, knows that you're pure love. Your ego is going to come in straight away. And this is the biggest thing I see people blocking people. is because they can't discern from their ego or their higher self.
Yeah.
And this is generally what holds people back, because they're getting the guidance, but they don't know what to do with it. So that's why I see so much power in the programs, and like you say, in MDL as well, Shules, you're um giving people back that power to know that
Mhm.
they have that within them. Another great way to tap into your intuition is meditation. And I know people don't like getting this advice about meditation, but it is. And a lot of people come to me and say they can't meditate. I was a believer that I couldn't meditate. The best way to do it is to start listening to guided meditations. There's so many guided meditations. And a lot of people get really frustrated because they think they're going to get all these downloads in meditations. And yes, that can happen. And when you train yourself to do it, it's a meditation practice. When you start practicing meditation, you will start getting downloads over time. But right now, that's not what it is. If you're not used to a meditation practice, it's about allowing your thoughts to come and go, allowing them to leave. And you might get the download when you're in the shower after that. You might get the download when you're working out or doing the laundry. It's not about doing a meditation to get all the downloads, because I see people falling into that pattern now. They're told, oh, you're going to get downloads when you meditate. And then they're going into a meditation going, where's my download? Where's my download? Where's my download? And they're not actually practicing stilling their mind. Um, Another great way to access your intuition is through journaling, allowing your pen to free flow and not judging what's coming up. So much of our programming is caught up thoughts in the mind. And when you actually get them out onto paper, slowly and surely, your intuitive voice is going to start coming through, flowing out on paper, because the mind will have ran out of things to say. And then your intuition starts flowing.
So
Sorry.
powerful. Sorry, I felt like Nadia wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I think that's so powerful, because that's something I did at the start. Because like my journey was a little bit different to both of yours. Like you guys went into like a psychic program, and mine was kind of like through Shule's evolution. I started getting into this. So I didn't have any really like a lot of background. So I would go in and be like, especially mine, I've got like a Gemini brain, so it doesn't stop. But I would go into the meditations literally like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And I'm like, right in front of you.
I remember when you used to do that, Ned. So I used to be, I remember when you went through that period where you were just like, all right, give me a sign, give me. But I love everything that you said in terms of those tips. And I love that you did bring it back to meditation, because that's the advice I give as well. I'm like, you really can't do this without doing meditation, in my opinion. Like, you need to become so familiar with the voices that go on in your head, like the patterns, the behaviors, in order for you to create change. It's like you need to be able to like sort of like trip up the circuit almost, and just be like, hey, like, okay, this is a pattern, this is like, this isn't true. And just to detach from those thoughts that are telling you that it's impossible and you can't do it and da 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 da, like all of that is just, it's bullshit. It's really,
Background.
really just, it's bullshit. And you need to be able to like just be, okay, yep, it's bullshit. So you can like take yourself like out of that. And you do have the power to do that. You just have to have like the sovereignty over your own mind, because lots of people don't feel like they can. They feel like these thoughts have like, they have a hold of them. I know I did for so long. Like that's why I couldn't even manage like meditating like 3 minutes with myself. I couldn't even be alone with my mind.
Yeah.
When I start, sorry, Nadia, you go.
No, you go. I was just agreeing.
I was definitely the same when I started meditating. The first meditation, somebody gave me a 20-minute CD.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ladies even know what CDs are?
Yes! Oh my
Yes, we
God. I had
do,
like the
but
Hot
I'm
100.
showing my age.
No, I'm like, I had CDs too.
I'm a few. But anyway, somebody gave me a 20-minute CD, and it was so painful. It was the most awful experience ever. I just was crying the entire way through it. And this was like before any of this, before I got into personal development. And I just literally went, whoever said meditation is good, I will never be doing that again. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I went to an event and they started saying to start off slow, to start doing like even 5 by 1 minute meditations a day.
Mm-hmm.
So I then ended up finding an app and I started doing 2-minute meditations a day. So this isn't about sitting down and doing 20 minutes. This is about training yourself. I agree exactly with what you're saying. It's kind of like, it can be so uncomfortable to sit with yourself when you're not used to doing it. And you're not going to be able to sit there and do it for 20, 30 minutes straight away. It's a
Yeah.
practice, and you just keep getting into it, because exactly what you're saying is you're trying to break the pattern of the egoic mind that you've been programmed into for your entire life.
Yeah.
And that programmed mind is coming from fear and lack. It is not coming from the real you. The higher self is the real you, and your higher self knows the truths of the universe. And the ego is always going to protect you. And the ego isn't bad. And a lot of people, the ego gets a bad rep. The ego is just, it's trying to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, when they start coming into this and they start hearing that the ego is bad, they start beating themselves up again. So that's just another aspect of the ego beating you up. It's not actually the real you beating you up, because your higher self is compassionate and would never do it. So I see people getting so caught in this loop of going, it's my ego, it's my ego. But your higher self would never say that to you. Like, your higher self would show you compassion and know that that's just the way you're programmed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Something like in regards to like, because we've been speaking a little bit about like a lot about intuition, but something I notice a lot in the manifestation space and going after your desires is like this. It's like a lot about like, you know, we see online like these very, very strategic methods like affirming all day, the 360 method, script. Even a lot of people share like the process in manifestation, get clear your limiting beliefs, etc., etc. But I feel like there's not a lot in this space with manifestation about talking about the importance of your intuition. Like, actually, like, to be honest, like, this is like the foundations. Like, there's no point going after what you want if you don't know how to like manage your intuition. So have you, like, can you give some examples of like where like people have it, like, I guess like the repercussions of like going after your desires not from an intuitive place? So like, why is it so important to nail your intuition like in the manifestation process?
I think it's really important with that, because I get a lot of people coming to me in terms of love and dating. And like, I think you'll all agree with me when you say, well, you two ladies, when I say that the desires are in your heart, they're there for a reason. So I think people come and they want say if they're looking to manifest their soul aligned person, and they're getting really frustrated because that person isn't there. I tend to draw in light workers to work with me. So they might come to me in the area of love, and they might be wondering why this person isn't actually coming into form. But it's because their intuition is actually leading them to start a soul aligned business or to step into their role as a light worker. It's not to say they can't have the person, but they're been so focused on lack, I suppose, that this person isn't here yet. This person isn't in my life. And deep down, they know they want to be a light worker, or they want to do something in business, but they're kind of put it almost on pause. They put it on pause and they start going, I'll do that when I meet my person. And so they're shutting off their intuition to where they're actually being led. And that's delaying things happening for them. Because I see with a lot of women coming, particularly women, because it's this timeline, the biological clock is there, and it's putting pressure on them. And really, a lot of the guidance that comes through for them is like, you're actually being led to start your business, or you've been led to do this course, or you've been led to this thing. All this other stuff is going to fall into place for you. Take a deep breath, calm down, but follow your intuition, because right now your ego is just trying to get you to have this person. And a lot of times I see, because the people I attract into my world have such big, loving and caring hearts as well, it's likely that they would never go down the role of stepping into their light worker role, stepping into their mission of what they're here to do on this planet, because they're putting everything on pause for the person to come into their life. But when the person comes into their life, they would still put things on pause as well. So spirit always knows. You're always been led. And that's the biggest thing that I see when people don't follow their intuition. It's because they're not really getting guidance. They're not listening to themselves. They're listening to what everybody else would do rather than what they're supposed to do. And particularly for light workers, when you come into this world and you're told, okay, you have to go to school, go to university, get the job, get the house, get the partner, all those things. You're trying to tick off all those boxes, and your intuition isn't leading you to those places. Yes, it can do, but it's trying to get you to a different path. That's why, people might think that they're getting delayed with what they're what they actually want to manifest. And it's not to say that they can't manifest the person. It's not to say that the person isn't going to come into their life, but it's like you're choosing it. You want it to be on one timeline, and the universe is trying to direct you onto something else. And the quicker you get to following your intuition, you're going to feel so much more fulfilled in doing the work that you're here to do, but also in the type of partner that you attract as well.
Yeah, I love that, because something you said as well that was really subtle. The subtle things that we do is that we end up like getting into comparisonitis, right? When we don't know how to like discern from our intuition and our ego, like especially like starting a business and things like that. It's so easy to get caught up in comparisonitis and like watching what other people are doing. And then like you see this a lot. So many people end up creating businesses that don't even feel aligned for them, or they don't even like they just end up creating the same patterns, right? A life where you're from your ego, right? And that's like something that like the whole journey of like creating this business and stuff like that, it's been a journey, but it's just been so, it's like this back and forth thing, even Jules as well with you, like trialing things and being like, oh, that was ego, go again, doing this, that's ego, do I want to list, like, do I agree with that mentor? And it just, I think so many people like give their power away to like outside sources when, yeah, like that guidance is coming from within.
And like just to add to this conversation, I feel like a really important piece of the puzzle that I don't think many people talk about when they talk about like the discernment between ego and higher self, including myself, is the fact that like mentorship skyrockets your journey. Like programs, mentorship, getting yourself in communities, in spaces, like working with people who can actually call you out on your shit. Like that's just something that I know has been a big catalyst to my growth. Like I've had experiences where I've allowed like mentors and things like that to like, take me down the path where it wasn't actually aligned. However, that just strengthened my intuition in the end anyway. But all in all, like all of those courses, all of those programs really like 10x'd my journey. Really, really like that. That's why I believe I got here so, so, so fast, because I put myself in spaces, I put myself in situations where other people could call me out on my ego.
Yeah, like you literally quantum leap going into these programs.
Yeah.
I think so too. I really, really agree. I wouldn't be where I am today without the programs and without the community I've met along the way in the programs. But I always like to do, when I am such a big believer in soul family, and I'm also a big believer like in, if you see it in somebody else, it's because it's within you. And I always say it to people within my group. A lot of them might come in and they might be feeling not very confident about something. And I'm like, well, if you see it in another woman within this group, that means it's because it's within you as well. So can you not hold yourself with compassion through navigating a difficult situation? What would you say to this other person in the group if they were going through it? And there's so much power in that. And for me, doing the work in groups as well, I remember starting doing group programs and I didn't like it. I wouldn't have raised my hand. I didn't want to be involved. I wanted to shrink off into the background. So for me, it's so important that people take up space when they're in those group programs. People have so much to learn from every person, and everyone incarnates here with unique gifts and qualities. It's the law of Dharma. And when you give access to somebody, when you give your authentic self within a group, other people are learning so much. Even if you're feeling like you're at the start of the journey, there's something to be gained from everybody within the space as well. Not only just from the mentor, but from the people that you're drawn to work with as well.
I love that you do that. Like you really get the person to like shine their light in the group. And that is something that used to happen to me as well. Like I remember my very first group program, and this is why these group programs are so fucking expansive, because it's forcing you to face these egoic, like, the egoic fear, right? That comes up with like using your voice and sharing your gifts. But I remember like when I first did, I think it was like Simply Business. That was my first ever program that I went in, and I would get like sweaty palms. Like I'd like be having a panic attack right before like I had like a little section to speak. Like I just couldn't even like handle the spotlight and those faces being on me. Now I'm just like, give me the spotlight, please. Everyone take a step back.
The Leo in you.
The Leo in me.
I was totally the same. I would ask a question to the coach or mentor, and then I'd be sitting there going, "Oh my God, can she stop?" I couldn't actually hear what she was saying because I was like, everyone's saying that my question is so annoying. Everyone is judging me for my question. Oh my God, can she stop talking to me? And I'd have to go and watch the call replay to actually hear what the coach or mentor actually said to me because I was in such a panic over it.
Wow.
Whereas throughout the programs, then I had to start raising my hand, start realizing that like I was actually really triggered in a lot of those programs where there'd be other people in the program and they would be raising their hand every week. They would be talking, they'd be taking up space. And I really had to look within myself and go, what is it about me? Because I believe anything that's triggering us means that there's something unhealed within us. So I'd be like, what is it triggering me? What is this common trait going through all of these women that are triggering me? And it was because they weren't afraid to take up space, because they were confident, because they didn't mind speaking their truth. And then that really had to get me to a place that was like, no, if that's triggering me, that means I don't like something, that's because they're confident, and I need
Yeah.
to start owning my confidence.
I love that you mentioned that, the fact that like we like using your triggers to actually guide you back to yourself and to heal those aspects of yourself that's wounded, because that's not something that I used to do. I used to be like, well, this person is this and they did this to me and they suck and they made me feel like this, and I used to be so like victim mindset, woe is me, everything's happening to me, people are awful, rather than like just taking responsibility and accountability for the way that I feel and being like, okay, well, that person can act and do whatever they want, and why the fuck are they triggering me? And it can be those simplest things, like somebody being like really active in a group. That used to trigger me as well, because I wanted to be that person, right? I wanted to be that confident, I wanted to trust myself like that. So that is something that I resonate with so much. And I think a superpower to actually work on when you're on this journey of following your intuition and trying to discern between your like ego and higher self, and you're living this intuitively led life, is to actually take your power back and do that with every situation. Don't ignore those triggers that come up. Like, you're on social media and then someone says something and it triggers you. Like, take a moment and be like, why does this post trigger me? Why is it the way that they're speaking? Why is that triggered me? Why did I join this masterclass and it's fucking triggered me? Like, actually ask those deeper questions, because they reveal these unhealed, wounded aspects of yourself that is looking for your reassurance and, yeah, you're healing basically.
Yeah, I feel like that's how it starts for people. Like that's a great place to start, is self-awareness in this healing journey. Like actually that's pretty much how I started. I remember like you got into it, Shules, and it just started smallly like asking myself like even before like, oh, what do I want to do with my life? It just started with those like small little tweaks, and then as you do that, then it kind of like all the things come to the surface.
They really do, but I think we can look at it in two aspects. For me, I like to look at it in two aspects. It's like if I look at somebody that's amazing and that that inspires me, I'm like, what is it about them? Because if it's within them, that means it's available to me too, because it's the law of one, nobody's born more worthy than one another. And we can all do that thing. But it's like I could just as equally see somebody powerful there and they could trigger the hell out of me. And I'd have to ask myself, okay, what within them? But sometimes I find that it's because I actually want to be doing what they're doing. It's like I
Yeah.
see them impacting millions of people. And it's like, oh, it's not that I'm triggered because it's actually unhealed within me. It's because I actually want to do that as well.
That's like something I said in my masterclass for the universal laws, is like that's literally the universe's way of being like, this wake up, this is what you want, right? Like that's how it started, right? Seeing like other people do what you want, and then you just go from there. So it's good. It's double-sided. It has benefits.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's one of those things that people, when you get triggered by it, it's because you're actually thinking it's not available to you.
Yeah,
Mm.
well, it's what you're denying within yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
You also mentioned earlier that you do a lot of work to help people in like the dating world and things like that. So I just had like a question that popped to mind. I would love your opinion on, I know this is like going off topic, but it was just like, it's something that sparked my interest. Your opinion on soulmates, actually. Do you believe in soulmates?
Twin flames.
Yes.
So
Definitely love this question. And I'm like, I could go so many different directions in this. This is something, I could talk about for so long.
Yeah.
Um, so a soulmate is somebody we've done a past life with. And we've all done so many past lives. Therefore, we've many soulmates. And there is many soulmates for you, as in there could be friendships. So you and I, Shule, we did a soul, we discovered a past life together. Nadia, I'm sure we've done past lives together as well.
Sure.
Then your family, chances are your family, you've done lives with them before. There's the friends, the friendships that you make that you just instantly click with somebody and you feel like you've known them forever. There's also the people who trigger the hell out of you, that you're like, I don't even know why they trigger the hell out of me, but there's something within them that's triggering you, like our
Mhm.
earlier conversation. And
Mhm.
James Wedmore calls them the petty tyrants, those people that are there to teach you something. Because a
Yeah.
lot of our soulmates come in to teach us like forgiveness or
Mhm.
compassion.
Mhm.
And you can't forgive somebody unless they do something painful to you.
Mhm.
And then there is the soulmates that come in that you have the romantic connection with. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be, because I have done past life healings with people when they're trying to get over an ex, but it's actually been that they were siblings before, or they were parent child dynamic, and people get really disturbed by it. It's not, your soul isn't disturbed by it, your soul signed up to this. um so really around the question is a lot of people think there's the one soulmate and they're searching for their soulmate. We all have many soulmates.
Mhm.
And what I say to a lot of my clients when they split up from a soulmate, or a lot of times people get really confused because they might be seeing somebody and they might have this amazing connection, but it might only last a few weeks. And it's typically women that I work with. The woman will come to me and she'll be so upset because she's like, was the connection not real? Did he not see it? And generally, when I tap into the male's energy, of course they saw it. Of course they
Mhm.
saw it. But the thing is that when somebody is shining so bright, and it's typically a light worker as well, they're shining so bright that they're illuminating the other person's shadows. And when you mix intimacy into something, it can get even more complex. So what happens is that one person's soul might want to keep rising, evolving up. The woman, for instance, that I'm working with,
Mhm.
whereas the men, if their shadows are so illuminated, they might feed into fear
Mhm.
because their ego might be telling them this is scary because they
Mhm.
haven't felt this depth of connection before.
Mhm.
And if they're so terrified, it might cause them to run away because the feelings are so intense
Mhm.
and they don't know what to do. So they run, which is really, really sad. And my clients would often be upset with me, but I like to reassure them in the fact that we have many soulmates and you're going to meet somebody else. And
Mhm.
really what's important that you take on board the lessons that you were meant to learn from that one soulmate that you just experienced a separation with, because you will learn so much from each of your soulmates. Like there is just so much beauty in having a soulmate connection. And it can be really difficult to let them go, but just know there is another one coming. And once you continue to do the work on yourself and continue to raise your vibrational state, another one will come. It sounds fickle to say, oh, there's another one coming along. But your soul doesn't actually mind who you learn the lessons of.
Yeah.
Like your soul is just wanting you to heal and evolve. And if somebody chooses, like say if the male in those situations chooses not to raise their vibrational state and rise up with you, they will fall they will fall out of your reality. They
Mm.
can no longer be a vibrational match for you, therefore they will fall off your reality.
Ugh, I love everything that you said. I'm like such a really in-depth view on like soulmates, because I feel like that term is just like thrown around but not really understood. So thank you for like really diving into that. The thing that I like that you said is that they have a choice in the matter, that they have a choice and your soul doesn't care who you learn the lessons of, because that's another thing about being on this plane. Like we do have a choice, and that's why like you have a choice to follow your ego or your intuition. Like, and one like discerning factor that I always say with like discerning between ego and intuition is your intuition will respect your ability to choose,
Mm.
right? Whereas your ego doesn't. Your ego is like blah, 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 like you have to listen to me. It does not respect your free will in the slightest. Whereas your intuition's like, it's cool, you can do it or you don't have to, it's
Yeah.
here though. um
You'll learn it either way.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I really like that you mentioned that in regards to like soulmates, because it's the same thing. Like they have the ability to choose. And that does happen in dynamics. Like I've seen it in my own relationships as well. Like you end up shining so bright because you're like illuminating all your shadows, and you're growing in like sort of frequency, and like, you know, your vibration is increasing, and then people around you, it's either like they can't stay, so then you hit like conflict, and then they're like including every relationship, every side of relationship, right? They like things start to like come to a head, and it's either you grow together, they choose to do the work, or you don't.
Yeah.
Completely. And because there's infinite possibilities and infinite timelines, every decision not only we make, but they make has a different timeline. So there's a version of me probably still with my ex, and we're probably very happy. There's a version of me with my ex and we're very unhappy. But my intuition was definitely we were soulmates. He fed into fear.
Mm-hmm.
However, my intuition was trying to get me to leave. I used to have night terrors. I would wake up in cold sweats. I used to be
Mm-hmm.
screaming, crying in my sleep, and he'd be trying to wake me up.
Mm-hmm.
That was my body telling me to leave. But
Mm-hmm.
I was so stuck in ego. I was so stuck in fear. And this is when a lot of people come to me. They are in fear because they think I've had this connection and it's so strong and it's so deep. And, you know, the sex could have been amazing. And what if there's nobody else? And it's all
Mm-hmm.
this lack, these limitations that people are placing on themselves, thinking that there won't be another person, thinking there won't be that connection. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not to move out of it and just not grieve for that person. There's a grieving process that has to happen when the situation unfolds. However, it's allowing yourself compassion and allowing yourself, and it's actually just reminded me of a question a client asked me yesterday, because she just came out of a situation, and you know, I was telling her to that it's really important to surrender to what's happening now, and surrendering and trusting. And she was so confused. She was just like, I've heard that word so much, surrender, but what does it actually mean? And I was just explaining to her, I was like, well, it's surrendering to the fact that the universe has got you. You're always been protected. So if somebody has been taken out of your life, trust that they've been taken out of your life for a reason. And the best is yet to come. There's somebody better on the other side waiting for you. And it's not to spiritually bypass and just kind of go, okay, I'm going to get on with it, and I don't need to grieve the loss of this person. But it's trusting, it's allowing yourself to grieve. But underneath all of that, knowing that you were always been divinely protected. And if somebody was meant to be in your life, they'd still be in your life.
I think that that's really powerful that you had that question come up in a reading as well, because yeah, we often hear those words and like surrender and do this, and you're just like, yeah, but what does that actually mean? But sorry, Nats, what was that?
No, I was literally like, yeah, agreeing.
It's like, what does that actually mean? And actually taking a step back. And I love how you brought it back to the underlying fact of it being, it's this ultimate trust in the universe. It's this ultimate trust that you are going to be provided for. That I love how you said the best is yet to come. Like, universe, like, show me how good it gets, right? And it's that relationship that you're building with yourself, but also your world, right? And it's like you take care of yourself, you nourish your intuition, you go through a grieving process, you know, you let yourself do all of that, and then your world mirrors that back to you. Like your world you take care of yourself, your world takes care of you. And it's just a relationship as well. Like it's something that we work on all the time. Like we're constantly working with the universe in big ways and small ways, right? We're just constantly showing and proving to ourselves how we're like it was kind of the small ways of working with the universe that kind of led to the big ways, right? Because you just saw the evidence of, oh shit, like the universe always delivers, like the universe, my world always takes care of me, right? You start seeing that compound. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
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 I'm like,
It
am
does all
I?
compound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's the little things. And this
Mm-hmm.
is what people come into this world, and they're trying to manifest the bigger things. You know, it could be the
Mm-hmm.
partner, that could be the business, it could be the house, the car, but it's all those little things. It's the little things that you anchor back into your trust in seeing the little magical moments. And A Course in Miracles speaks about, like, a miracle is turning fear into love. And it's when we're constantly looking for these bigger things, we're missing out on life in general and seeing the smaller things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the smaller things really allow you to build the trust up in the universe. And it's easier to surrender and trust God when you're talking about the smaller things as well. When
Mhm.
we think about the bigger things that we desire in our life, we can become so attached to them. The ego becomes so attached to having them. And it's because we're making them mean something about us,
Mhm.
because we're making it think that there is something wrong with us if we don't have those things.
So do you have advice on how somebody could get out of that? Like, how could they go from like not needing something to actually just, yeah. Well, I guess you kind of explained it, right? But maybe just elaborating on that point of like finding that within.
Yeah. So, in terms of the whole concept of, say, if we're going to take it to a love thing, considering we were talking so much
Yeah.
on love there and needing somebody else, like my big truth is the fact that we are all pure love.
Mhm.
We are. It's not something that you look for. It is
Mhm.
what you are.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, I think people are placing, they're disempowering themselves by saying that
Mhm.
they're looking for love in another person, because it's taking them away from who they truly are. And when you realize, when you remember that truth, you don't need to seek it anywhere else. I'm not saying that you don't need to seek human connection. We are human and it is okay to want human connection, because I have people that come to me as well and they almost feel guilty because there's so much of these concepts that say, oh, you can't, until you are 100% happy, you will never be with your person. And I think that's so wrong, because we all know loads of people that aren't happy with themselves that are in partnerships. This
Mhm.
is about you coming back to the truth of who you are. And when you start anchoring back into trusting that you're always been provided for, you will trust that you're on the right path and you don't need to seek it out in another person. You
Mhm.
can still go on your healing journey and still be looking for that connection with somebody else, but it's like you're not going to feel another person isn't going to fully provide for you the way that you can do it yourself.
Mhm. I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like if we're talking about the love example, it's like that person should be amplifying the feelings that you already have within.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they're just mirroring something back to you.
Yeah.
So you're always attracting in somebody that's a vibrational match for you. So if you are coming from a place of not feeling worthy, not feeling lovable, not feeling good enough, you're going to attract somebody back. And this is something that confuses people, because they could typically attract in somebody that's real, like, a male egotistical example that, nearly
Mhm.
like that, oh my God, I'm so amazing on the outside, but they're doing
Mhm.
that because they feel so unworthy and feel so small on the inside. So a
Yeah.
lot of people don't understand. They're like, going, but I'm nothing like that person. But I'm like, it's the underlying core beliefs. That's where you're vibrating from,
Mhm.
is those underlying core beliefs. So it's really important when you are seeking a person out there that you're constantly working on yourself, because you don't want to attract in somebody. And I always say it to people, when they're not feeling worthy of it, I'm like, well, would you want a man that didn't feel worthy of a loving partnership? Because that's not
Mm.
what you're, the type of partnership. And most people that come on into my world are people that their soul is actually wanting an amazing partnership. They're not looking for just a normal standard relationship. They want to
Mhm.
be happy, want to be fulfilled. And the universe is going to keep taking people out of your life until you actually find that love and remember the truth of who you are.
I love that. That's so powerful. Because I feel like that's like really similar to the manifestation process in general. Like when you're manifesting your desired life, you have to think about who you're being now. Like where are you acting from? Where are these things coming from? And it's like you have to fix or clean up the energy that you don't want to actually attract into your desired life. You know what I mean? So I really, really like that in using it from the perspective of actually attracting a partner, somebody else. It's like, well, how can you attract somebody from this energy? Like that's not going to be what you want in a partnership. Sorry, Nats, were you going to say something and I just interrupted?
No, no, I totally agree. I actually saw, it was just so funny because this is just law of attraction. I think it was last night. I was on Instagram and I saw this girl share her story where it was like literally the same thing you were saying. She was trying to attract a partner and all these things, and she like finally got to a point where she's like, okay, like I'm something's not right. Like it's been years. Like not, I think it was even like she'd been single for at least 12 to 15 years. And she had to realize like she had these undercore beliefs of like not being worthy enough and all that. And I think it was with clearing with that. I think within like 6 weeks she met the guy she's like married to now and stuff like that, which is just unbelievable, like what happens when you just get to the nitty-gritty root of the problem.
Completely. There's so much magic in it when you actually clear it out. And I think then people actually realize, oh my God, that is why it hasn't been working out for me before, is because my soul is actually looking for somebody that I can have an amazing life with.
Oh, so powerful. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for all of your wisdom today. Honestly, I'm like such a wealth of knowledge. When you were like talking, I was literally getting so lost in what you were saying. And I'm like, oh my God, podcast. Like, I'm like, I'm not listening here. I'm like, I'm running this. So literally, I was like literally so lost in your words, and I was so like captivated by what you were saying. This is what happens whenever I have your voice recordings on as well. I'm just like, keep talking.
You're not used to having to respond to me in
No,
conversation.
no, I'm just like, I just want to keep listening to you. I'm like, you're literally such a wealth of knowledge, and oh, I love learning from you every single day. So thank you so much for this episode. I'm definitely sure that we're going to have like a fucking part 2, because I feel like we could really, really, really dive into this topic. And I feel like if the listeners like want a part 2, you know, let us know, because we can really like hone in on the like the dating world, the relationships and things like that, like being in partnership with someone, because yeah, you really do have like just so many amazing codes in regards to that realm. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. Like, you're such a fucking wealth of knowledge. I love it. So where could people find you? Where could they work with you? Where could they get all of your magic?
Well, firstly, I'd love to do a part 2 if the listeners want that. It would be so amazing. And I usually hang out on Instagram at The Reclaim Coach, and my website is thereclaimcoach.com.
Oh, amazing. Highly recommend, like, do everything with Cheryl. Do the reading, change your life, first of all,
Yeah.
and then join all of her programs, because this woman will literally just change your fucking life. Like, I literally have her in MDL, because that's how fucking amazing your magic is. And every single time I have like you on, the girls always end up working further with Cheryl, because that's how fucking powerful she is.
This has been such a
Literally.
fun conversation, ladies. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, such a pleasure.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
If you loved today's episode, please do not forget to rate and review in iTunes or Spotify.
If you would love to connect with us on a more intimate platform, you can find us both on Instagram at Shule and at Nadia Galley. We would love to connect with you.
Thanks for listening.